Hello world, it's Austin. Let's talk about being transgender and Christian. This week I want to talk about what it means to be a good ally. I think sometimes we get stuck in the idea of thinking of allies as straight or cisgender people who support the LGBTQ+ community, but there are lots of other communities that really need allies. And we have to remember that it takes a lot more than a lukewarm, I guess I don't have a problem with that kind of attitude to be an ally. Allyship is work. And in the Hebrew Scriptures, aka the Old Testament, there's a pretty cool Hebrew word that I think sums up what it means to be an ally. The word is ezer, which means help or helper. This word is used quite a lot in reference to God. God is considered a helper for just about everybody, from Moses, who names his son Eliezer, which is just a mashup of the words El for God and Ezer for help, to David, who talks about God as his helper all the way through the Psalms. The word Ezer is used in the Old Testament 16 times in reference to God. It's used 3 times in references to other nations that help Israel, and 2 times, interestingly enough, in relation to Eve, the first woman. An Ezer, we find, is somebody who has your back, who works alongside you, and who picks you up when you fall down. And that's a pretty good definition of what an ally is, I think. Now, when it comes to being an ally to individuals and communities who have experienced marginalization, then there's more to it. In those cases, we always have to be aware of who holds the social power in a situation, and it's the responsibility of the people with power to move out of the way and give that power to the people who are marginalized. And there is a lot of biblical text to back this up. Jesus himself talks about giving up our power and our place in the world. He says in Luke 14, verses 8 through 11, "When you are invited by someone to a wedding banquet, do not sit down at the place of honor in case someone more distinguished than you has been invited by your host. And the host who invited both of you may come and say to you, 'Give this person your place,' and then in disgrace you would start to take the lowest place. But when you are invited, go and sit down at the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he may say to you, 'Friend, move up higher,' and you will be honored in the presence of all who sit at the table with you. For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted." And you know what? I'm actually going to read verses 12 and 13 too, because when we stop at 11, it makes it sound like we need to do these things because it'll benefit us in the end, and that's not quite what Jesus is saying here. Verses 12 and 13 say, "When you give a luncheon or dinner, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or your rich neighbors in case they may invite you in return and you would be repaid. Instead, when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind." We're supposed to give power and space to the people who can't repay us, to the people who don't have as much. And we're not supposed to do it because we're going to get paid off in the end. We do it because that's just what we're supposed to do. Real allies don't fish for compliments or try to make themselves seem better than other people because they're being allies. So what if you, like me, are part of a community that experiences a kind of oppression? Does that mean that you get to just sort of sit back and say, well, as long as things are going okay for me and my community is handled, I'm done now? Obviously, no. Unfortunately, because of the way humans work and because of the way society works, there is basically always somebody below you on the social ladder that needs a hand up. So how can LGBTQ+ people be allies for other people within their community who don't fit their specific demographic? So let's take a look at some facts, and I'm going to use myself as an example. I am a transgender guy, and as such, I'm probably going to experience discrimination in my life, and maybe even physical violence. But I'm also white, male-identified, I come from a middle-class family, I don't have any physical disabilities that are obvious to anybody, and I happen to have been born a citizen of my country. All these things make me much less likely to experience discrimination and violence. So who do I need to be an ally for? Who do I need to look out for? And here are some terrible stats to help me answer that question. Number 1, between 1995 and 1999, 98% of the violent hate crimes against people in the LGBT community were directed against transgender women. Number 2, so far in 2015, 21 trans women have been killed, almost all of them women of color, and the majority of them were black. Number 3, as of a study in 2013, 89% of the victims of hate-related homicide in the LGBT community were people of color. Number 4, trans women are 6 times more likely to be the victim of police brutality than any other LGBT demographic, and trans people of color are 6 times more likely than white cisgender people to experience police violence. So what this data on the LGBTQ community as a whole tells me is that I need to be an ally for trans women who have to experience not only discrimination based on their trans status, but they also have to deal with sexism, and people of color who not only have to deal with discrimination based on their gender identity and their sexuality, but also have to deal with racism. Even within smaller communities, we always have to be aware of who holds power. So how do we take that lower seat at the table and instead offer the higher seat to the people who really need it? Here are some ally tips for everybody, whether you are a part of the LGBTQ community or not. Number 1, educate yourself. Google is your friend. Whether you need to look up words like homophobia or transphobia or white supremacy or cis heteronormativity, go Google them. They're good things to learn about. And remember, it's your responsibility to educate yourself. It's not the responsibility of the marginalized person to become your personal tutor. All this information is out there, we just have to find it. Number 2, if you want to get involved with an activity like lobbying or protesting, make sure that the group that needs help is the group that's in charge. You're not there to lead, you're there to listen, to bear witness, and to stand in solidarity. Number 3, realize that the best thing that you can do for these communities is to talk within your own community about the issues that people are facing. For example, don't go preaching to the choir trying to tell minority groups what you think that they need. Instead, talk to your friends and family about the issues that they don't know much about and spread more information within your group. For example, if there's a bill going through your government right now that protects trans people, talk to everybody you know about how important those protections are so that people will vote for it. And number 4, remember to check your privilege. Know what social powers you are given simply because of your race, gender, class, age, disability, or immigration status. When you watch TV, do all the characters look like you? When you go to church, can everybody in the communion line afford the same clothes as you? How do you feel around authority figures like police officers, and what might that say about you and your community? These are all great questions to start getting you to think about the kind of privilege that you may have and the ways that you can extend that to other people. So how are you going to be an ally and AZER for people today? How are you going to step down so that other people can step up? If you want to learn more about the statistics I quoted in this video, definitely check out the links below. I found them really helpful. Personally, I'm trying to get some more time to collaborate with more people of color on these trans and Christian videos and on other projects, so I'm hoping that that will happen in the near future. Thanks for watching this video, everybody. Hit subscribe if you want to see more videos like this every week. Let me know what you think about the video and what you think about the ideas of privilege and stepping down in the comments below, and I will see you back here next Wednesday. Peace.